Welcome to the Uffsides NFL podcast. My name is Matt Ufford. With us in the SB Nation studios today is Tiki Barber.
Hey, Matt. I am honored. This is your first show,
This
right?
is episode number 1 of what will be thousands. It'll be thousands, and we will be the most popular NFL podcast.
The
ever.
only gripe that I have is you didn't send me a note saying, don't wear a suit today.
You know what? We were just talking about this. I came very, very close to dressing up in like lovely pinstripe trousers and a cute little zip sweater, fashionably like black and gray for a New Yorker. And I saw it was raining, and I was just like, no.
You were smart. You were much smarter than I was.
I'm sorry. We should have explained to you that this is going to be on the internet. And
okay.
therefore,
We're not live?
ties are frowned upon. No, that's part of your thing. I think people, as soon as they hear Tiki Barber, they know that this man will be well dressed everywhere that he goes.
I try to be. It was a lesson I learned from Michael Jordan a long, long time ago.
Oh, yeah?
Listening to him.
Your good personal friend, Michael Jordan?
No, he's not actually, even though I did meet him at a party one time, but that's a discussion for some other time. But he said, I never know when someone's going to meet me for the first time, so I always try to look good. So, that's the philosophy behind why I wear ties all the time. I think I might be the only person in New York that still does it.
I was a strictly stay-at-home blogger for 6 years, and it's just an accomplishment to put on pants every day.
I was going to say, what's the underwear choice most
I
days?
have worn this hoodie for 17 straight days now.
Oh, I love it.
No, maybe that's...
I'm jealous.
That's not true. I have like 4 different hoodies.
They're all the same, though?
Yeah, they're all the same. Listen, let's get right into talking about the NFL. I like to start things off with discussing the worst team in the NFL. Brendan, do we have a sexy graphic for that? No? There it is. Worst of the worst. And it's even Chiefs colored.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to go any farther than the Kansas City Chiefs. No, so I watched that game last night.
I'm sorry.
The Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, I'm lying. I watched the first half of that game last night, and the reason I turned it off was because Wallace and Heath Miller were on my fantasy team, and I just needed them to score about 8 points.
Then
I won my game.
That Mike Wallace catch was all you needed.
It was fantastic. Then I turned it off. But in truth, the Kansas City Chiefs literally can't figure out how to get out of their own way. They have some of the best talent offensively in the National Football League, and Jamal Charles and Dwayne Bowe, and they just don't give them the ball. Sometimes, I watch some of these games, and Jamal Charles gets 5 carries. This is from a guy who rushed for 233 yards about 4 weeks ago, and at the very least, you would think you'd just hand it to him at least 15 times.
Give him the damn ball.
Just to see what happens. Even if he gets 5 yards, just to hand it to him enough to see what happens. And as a former running back, I know the frustration that he probably goes through, but can't say anything. I think Romeo Crennel is on the significant hot seat. There's
and
a
it's
few
not
on the hot seat.
It's not like the Chiefs have this wealth of running backs. It's not like well, we've got 2 really talented guys. We got to get them both carries, like C.J. Spiller and Fred Jackson.
You know who they give it to?
Peyton
Hillis. Peyton Hillis is a monster. He's a good-looking dude. He could, put him in an outfit and a uniform. He's like, man, I don't want to get in his way. But he runs about a 4.8 40, and he's not going to scare anyone offensively.
Jamal Charles, so fast. It's beautiful to watch him run.
Speed kills. But they are the worst team in the National Football League.
And I mean, it's a shame. We used to be able to have a fun discussion about like, oh, the Jaguars are in this, and they lost 27-10 to the Colts. They're like, that is not a fun team, but they can't even get in the discussion. We do owe congratulations to the Chiefs. They had their first ever lead.
You know what? That stat staggers me.
Week 10,
and I didn't think they were winless. And the reason I found out is that they won a game in overtime.
Yeah,
that's the only lead that they have. So in the regular play, when they scored the first touchdown last night, it was the first time in 10 games that they had a lead at any point in regular time.
Yeah,
it's baffling.
I've got Jamal Charles on 3 of my 4 fantasy teams, and it's
So you have a love-hate relationship with Jamal Charles.
Man, I want to take over coaching the Chiefs for 1 week, and my playbook will be Jamal Charles.
Well, you know what? Romeo Crennel might hand you that job pretty soon, anyways.
Man, I'll tell you what, I couldn't do much of a worse job. Let's flip it over. Talk about the best teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
We obviously saw the Texans' dominant performance. I won't say dominant, but the Bears definitely didn't show up.
They won against a very tough Bears defense, an opportunistic Bears defense, and they didn't make many mistakes, and they came away with the win. I think a lot of it had to do with them knocking Jay Cutler out of the game. But the reason I love the Texans, I'll start in the AFC, is for a best team. The reason I love the Texans is because they're old school in a way in that they run the ball first to set up play action and throwing the ball down the field. And so many times in the National Football League over the last 4 or 5 years, you've seen quarterback-heavy offensive schemes where all we care about is getting the ball downfield, throwing quick passes to run, which I think gives you a disadvantage offensively game planning, because then people know what's going to happen, especially when you start shifting and changing in running backs, a third down back, a big yardage back. Arian Foster, who can play every down and can do anything on any down, gives you a competitive advantage that the Texans take advantage of, and that's why they're 7 or 8 and 9 and 1 now.
Well, you see, that's a team I feel that is built for the playoffs, because we've seen some regular season success with those past first teams, Aaron Rodgers, the Packers, Tom Brady, and the Patriots when they're 16-0 season. They're built for the regular season, and they run into a stout defense in the playoffs, and it ends early.
I'll give you the perfect example of exactly what you're saying. The New York Giants in the regular season were horrible running the ball last year, horrible. But they were winning at some point. They got to a 7-7 record, and they made a storm down the stretch and into the playoffs to go forward. But the reason they did that is because they started running the ball effectively after being, I think, 30th or 31st in the league in rushing. In the playoffs, they were putting up 120 yards a game. Their defense started to play fantastic, getting sacks, etc. So they shifted when they needed to for the postseason, because at the end of the day, winning championships is as big a cliche as there is. It's all about playing defense, holding on to the ball, time possession, and not turning it over. And that's what the Giants have done the last 2 times they've won Super Bowls, is they play fantastic defense and don't turn the ball over in the postseason.
And we'll talk about the rest of the best of the NFC in a second, but I want to talk about the Giants because it's a team obviously that you're close to.
They're still one of the best in the NFC, but they go through this every single year.
I don't think there's a single team, and we're talking over the last 5 years. This is consistent under Tom Coughlin with a bigger variance. You've got a team that can go into San Francisco and just hand the Niners their ass, and then they play poorly at home. Laid an egg against the Bengals. They were dominated.
They
by
played
the Bengals.
horrible against the Steelers, and they were lucky the game was as close as it was. They got that sack fumble on Ben Roethlisberger that was questionable tuck rule, got picked up, returned for a touchdown. If it wasn't for that game was not even close. And then obviously they get blown out by the Cincinnati Bengals on the road, which was embarrassing considering how bad the Bengals have played. But I have a philosophy, not a philosophy. I have a take on why this happens. So Tom Coughlin is as good a coach as there is in the National Football League, and this is by no means a knock on Tom Coughlin, but it's going to sound like it. He is aggressive. He is straightforward. He nails these messages into your mind all season long, starting in training camp. And at some point, you get tired of listening to it. I'm serious. You get tired of listening to it, and your mind doesn't register it anymore. Coupled with the fact that he's a taskmaster in practice, so you're going full steam all week, for 10 straight weeks in practice. So you get physically tired, you get mentally tired, and every year the Giants have this lull. But the good thing is that they are mentally tough because of it, and eventually they will recover. You go through this this peak of physicality, and all of a sudden you start to wane off, but then you come back. And that's always what happens with the New York Giants. At the end of the year, they realize that their backs are against the wall, and they have a mental toughness that allows them to fight back. They start getting their health back, and they excel at the end of the seasons. It happens literally every year. So people who are getting crazy about the Giants being 6-1, and then now they're 6-3, and this happens every year, yada yada yada. Just be patient. They got very fortunate that the NFC East sucks this year. The Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys, the Washington Redskins, they're not going to catch them. So they have a little bit of time. They have a bye week this week, and they'll come back even stronger because that's what they always do.
You said that Tom Coughlin will hone in on a message starting in the preseason. Like, what's an example of that? What are some of the things he says?
It's little things, right? So, for instance, when I was there, it was all about let's protect the ball, and we all remember the fumbling issues that I had early in my career, and he and his staff helped me correct it, and it was because he was constantly drilling it in my head, constantly focus on the ball, focus on the ball, focus on the ball, and it gets annoying, right?
Shut up.
You're just like, shut the hell up. But you know what? It helps, right? And eventually you get tired of listening to it, but you realize in the long run it was beneficial, and he's right. So it's a matter of having enough maturity to understand his message and to apply it in the right way that allows you to be successful when it matters.
All right, so the Giants still look like one of, even with a little 2-game losing streak, still look like one of the best in the NFC. Who else do you think is at the top of the class?
I would say I love the Atlanta Falcons, but the Atlanta Falcons are exactly what you alluded to earlier. They're a team that's built to win in the regular season, and until they make it significantly past the first round, second round of the playoffs and start playing then, I'm just not going to believe it. I think they have a lot of great talent. Julio Jones, Matt Ryan is a fantastic quarterback, and Anthony Gonzalez is a freak of a tight end at 37 or 38 years old. He's still doing it. He just had his 101st touchdown reception in his career. But this is a team that always folds when it matters.
Michael Turner had 15 yards rushing on Sunday.
Exactly. They're not consistent. A couple weeks ago he had 110 yards, but they're not consistent in what they're doing offensively. And fortunately, they've had a somewhat of a not challenging schedule. I love the Giants. Obviously, we talked about it, but I'm starting to like the Green Bay Packers still, mainly because of Aaron Rodgers. They have a lot of weapons offensively. They've had a couple of guys that have been down in the receiving core, but when they get it together, they're going to be a fantastic team.
Yeah, and I think I pointed out that Michael Turner having the rushing for 15 yards. That's against the Saints defense that's given up something like 170 yards per game. By far and away the worst rushing defense in the NFL,
without a doubt. And that's just a lack of creativity in your rushing in your running attack. You get caught in as a coordinator, I think, and as a team believing hype. And if you don't prepare the right way and specifically tailor game plans for your specific opponent, what happens last week happens to Atlanta Falcons. They're still a good team. They're going to be a significant player throughout the season, but they have a lot to prove, I think, to a lot of people around the league before they can be taken as a legitimate contender.
What's your Super Bowl pick right now as of Week 10?
You know what? I'm saying the Giants and the Texans. I really believe the Giants will turn it around, and I think that the Texans are the cream of the crop in the AFC. Obviously, Denver is playing fantastic with Peyton Manning, but defensively, I don't think they're as good as they were a year ago when they allowed Tim Tebow to get to the playoffs. The reason that Tim Tebow got to the playoffs obviously was not because it was Tim Tebow, it was because they gave up 10 points a game defensively, and they're not that as good defensively. But I like the Houston Texans. I think they have a resiliency. They have one of the top defenses in the league, and they have an offense that is unbelievably dynamic.
And does that differ from your preseason Super Bowl picks at all?
No, actually, no. I mean, I thought the Giants would be good this year. Obviously, the defending champions, and having a lot to prove because so many people said last year was a fluke for them. That they shouldn't have won. The Dallas game, they shouldn't have won. Whatever games in the playoffs, they got lucky, and I think they took that to heart as an affront to their accomplishment. And they were going to come back strong. Fortunately, they've stayed relatively healthy this season, except for some losses at wide receiver. But with Eli Manning playing as well as he's playing, it doesn't matter who you plug in at the wide receiver position for the Giants. So I had them number one, and obviously I have a man crush on Arian Foster. One, because he's such an intellectual as a player, and he takes the ups and downs of what happens in a season. As they are. They're just ups and downs. It doesn't mean, 1 week you suck, the next week you're the greatest. It's the ebb and flow of the National Football League. And I think that calmness, coupled with the fact that they have a really good quarterback in Matt Schaub, makes me love that offense and love that team.
Arian Foster, another dapper individual, too.
Absolutely a dapper individual. I think he's half vegan, too.
Yeah, half vegan.
Yeah, well, he claims he is, but he can't be vegan. You're a football player. You're weighing 220 pounds. I don't know how you don't eat.
Tony Gonzalez is vegetarian, isn't he?
Yeah, but Tony's like skinny.
Yeah,
he's skinny, but he's awesome.
You brought up Eli Manning. I've got this. Most NFL fans that follow the game notice that there's at any given time 15 to 20 good NFL quarterbacks.
Right.
There's always
I would say 10 or less.
Yeah, but we're talking a serviceable guy. Like he handed to him in the fourth quarter. You're like, you're not saying oh shit.
Yeah.
What's that like as a player? Because before Eli Manning showed up, the Giants definitely had a
with Eli Manning there, he was that oh shit guy.
Slow to develop, and still. There's bad Eli and good Eli.
Yeah, of course.
But good Eli usually shows up.
You're
in the
right. 90% of the time, you're getting good Eli.
But what's that like as a player to be like? Are you understanding that like not everyone is a superhuman capable of winning the game for you, or are you like, come on, I just got to get the ball because this guy's gonna screw it up?
It's a very interesting question because every team has that guy who they trust is going to make the play when they need to make the play, and it's going to happen every time. And the Giants have relied on that for 3 or 4 years now to beat Eli. And it's a lot of pressure, to be perfectly honest with you, on a guy. I still think of him as a young kid, and he's not. I mean, he's 30 years old now. He's been playing, this is eighth season. He's accomplished a playoff, veteran. He's 2 Super Bowl MVPs. He's done everything that you could possibly want a quarterback to do. But I still have this feeling in my head that he's a young guy and he's still growing.
You're not unique in that. Most, I think that I'm not alone in just envisioning him in overalls usually. A straw hat.
That's his personality. That's his leadership style. And for so long, people, had said, "Oh, he's not fiery enough." Me being one. You have to carry yourself a certain way to be a leader. But he's proven that you don't. I think at the end of the day in the NFL, it doesn't matter what your personality is. It's what you do on the field. And Eli has proven over the course of the last 5 years that he is a reliable, competent player in critical situations. I honestly think right now he's just worn out. He threw the ball a lot early in the season. There were a couple games where he had 55 passes, and eventually that wears on you. And he's never going to say, "Yeah, I'm worn out." But this bye week could not have come at a better time for him and for this team.
What's that like as a player? When do you want the bye week? Because I'm a Seahawks fan, and this year that we've got I say we as if I'm a member of the team. I'm actually not.
You're a fan. You're definitely a member of the team.
But this year they've got a week 10, and for several years it seemed like they were getting a week 4, week 5 bye, and I feel like you probably prefer it towards the end of the season.
Yeah, you want it right in the middle, to be honest with you. And the Giants got a little bit after the middle, as is evidenced by how poorly they've been playing. And I don't think it has nothing to do with schemes or skill level. It's just you get tired, you get worn out. You have bye weeks in the NFL for a reason because it's such a physical sport. I like it a little bit before midway because then you could get recovery before you were really beat up. You don't want to go into a bye week saying, "I need this bye week," because that's when you're scrambling to recover and you don't take it as seriously at the end. And then also you don't want it too late in the season, because if it's too late, it breaks any momentum that you may have had. And if it's really late, and you're playing poorly, it doesn't matter. You're going to come out of the bye week, you're going to be lethargic, you're going to be like, why are we playing anyways? And then those last 4 games, you can write them off. So I think just a little bit before the halfway point is when it's ideal, because you're not too beat up at that point, and you can game plan for what it's going to take to finish out the regular season strong.
All right. What's the worst fan base in the NFL? By worst, I mean, what's the place that you did not want to go play?
I would say Philly, but I can't, because I loved going to Philly because it was so intense and they were so mean that it got you ready to play. I think the in my experiences, the worst place was Arizona. When the Arizona Cardinals used to be in the NFC East, we travel out there every once a year, and it would be like, who cares? Right? It was like, okay, Arizona State played last night, and they had 65,000 people in the stands, and we're playing tonight, and there's like 20,000. So it was almost like a practice. So it was hard to get up for the game. The negativity that surrounds football is I think a fuel for the game. So I liked going to Philadelphia. I liked going to Oakland, even though a lot of people would say those were the worst places to play. You'd feel energized to play there. It's the places where nobody goes. Jacksonville's and the Arizona. They don't care. They'd rather be fixing their gardens than going to a football game. Those are the places that I think have the worst fan bases.
Huh. I definitely would not have predicted that. What about the travel? Now we always hear about it's a long flight out to Seattle or Arizona. Is that? I mean, you're flying first class.
Well, actually, you're not. The coaches fly first class. Oh. We're in a regular commercial airplane, and I feel bad for. I used to feel horrible for our tackles, our offensive tackles, or offensive linemen, or D tackles, because they're these 320-pound men sitting in a coach seat in the back of an airplane. And granted, they'd get 2 seats or 3 seats so they could sit sideways, but it's literally the most uncomfortable thing you could ever imagine. But I don't think travel affects you that much. I mean, if it's a long trip, so for instance, going to London, that's a tough trip because it's overnight. It's you're going to get there, you're going to be in a different time zone. Your circadian rhythms are all screwed up. And it's hard to get yourself right, to make morning be morning and night be night. So going east to west is easy. Going west to east is difficult. So the guys coming from the West Coast to the East Coast, they have a hard time because the time difference messes with you a lot.
tell me about being on the Giants. I feel like there's in every locker room there's one guy who's just like a foul human being, like barely. It's like basically like a zoo animal.
It's always the offensive lineman.
It's always an offensive lineman.
Always, and they're always the guys that love to just walk around with no clothes on too.
Who was that? Who was that when you were on the team?
I can't even. Glenn Parker was one.
Yeah.
You remember Glenn Parker? Glenn Parker has a and he's literally one of the smartest guys I ever played with. Extremely intellectual, but he has a distinction of being on five teams that won division championship or conference championships and didn't win the Super Bowl because he was on the Bills team. Those 4 Super Bowls that they AFC championships that they won, and then he was with us when we won the NFC championship and lost to the Baltimore Ravens in the Super Bowl. And so he has 5 championship. Conference championship rings, but no Super Bowl rings. But he was like slobby and funny. But it was interesting to see these guys with no shame.
Yeah, like they just walked around nude, just like just bad farts or what's going on? Who had the?
It's funny. It's like things that happen in the locker rooms are. You wouldn't expect grown men to do the things that they do, but you have to realize there's a sense of arrested development for professional athletes.
I was in the Marine Corps, so I know.
So you know exactly.
I've lived in a tent for like 60 days without a shower.
Yeah,
so
exactly. It's like you're reverted to a 12-year-old or 14-year-old who's going through prepubescence and you're just evolving and it gets arrested right there, and then you grow up. You're 25, 27, 28, and you're still that like 15, 14-year-old kid
it's still funny.
Who doesn't care. And it's so things that happen when you were that age are the same things that happen in NFL locker rooms because you're playing a kid's game. You're getting paid a king's ransom, as Warren Sapp used to always say, but you're playing a kid's game, and you still treat it that way.
All right, let's move on. I want to open up the troll bag. I opened up
troll bag.
The troll bag. These are all questions posed by Twitter.
Great.
And can I just say I learned some new words. Some that you have. There are some people that don't actually like you, Tiki.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Surprising.
Is that hard? Like before we start off, do you find you're on Twitter at Tiki Barber?
Of course.
Do you find just people like spewing vitriol? It's been 6 years.
Yeah, you know what?
10 years.
It's interesting. People dislike the things that I say because I tell what I feel. If you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you exactly what I feel. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And I was that way when I was playing. It was just probably masked because I was playing really well, so they didn't really care. But now as a journalist and someone who got paid to give an opinion, people didn't like what I had to say because I should have been a homer. I should have been supportive or more supportive of the team. But at the end of the day, my job was to give an opinion about what I thought where a team was going. And so, yeah, I know people like to hate me, but if you don't know me, I don't care. If you haven't spent any time with me or know what I'm all about or what makes me tick, I really don't care. You can have an opinion. I have plenty of them. And if I met some of these folks, I'm sure I'd have plenty of them as well.
Oh boy. Let's go to the first question on from the Twitterverse. This is from Ethan Rothstein at Ethan Rothstein. Do you think it's weird that your last name is Barber yet you have no hair?
It's interesting, yeah, because I am my own barber. Technically, for a long time, Rondé Barber was our family barber because he used to cut my hair. I remember when I was in high school, I used to get like lightning bolts and my number and all that stuff carved in my hair. But yeah, it was pretty sweet. Yeah, but this is back in the mid 80s and early 90s, so it was cool at that point. But yeah, it is kind of ironic that I have no hair.
How many times a week do you shave clean?
Every other day.
Every other day
in the shower. No soap, no nothing, just straight razor to the head. Your head gets tough when you have to shave as often as I've been shaving my head bald since I was 22. So it's been a long time.
Yeah. What would happen if you let it grow out? Are you actually
I'd be George Jefferson. No, I'd be George
Jefferson.
Jefferson. I just have the strip around the side.
I went
sweet. I did that actually one year in training camp. Plexico Burris was like, "Teak, I think you need to go with the George Jefferson," and I actually did it for a while, but then I started looking stupid.
I went clean when I was in Kuwait waiting for the war to start.
I see it in your avatar.
Yeah. It's I like to be able to think that should this beautiful head of hair ever start falling out, that I can go bald and feel confident with the shape of my head.
Yeah, you got a good shaped head, man. You look okay bald.
It's the only problem is with this complexion. I put some sunglasses on. People start giving the powder.
You're reflective.
I get the powder references. Which is
a great movie, by the way. I love that movie.
Check it out now on DVD. Brandon, what's next on our troll bag? Oh, from at Sarah Kate W. She says, "Did you ever wear that outfit Jack made for him on Project Runway season 5? I submit that he was lying when he said he would. You wore it the next morning on Good Morning America.
No, on the Today Show. I did wear it the next morning on Today Show, and I actually still have it. So he didn't make a jacket, and the reason it fit for me, because he made pants and a shirt for me. The reason it fit was because he was built just like I was. So that season of Project Runway, they got a twist because they had to design an outfit for a male. They're used to doing it for females, and none of them knew how to do it. It was an unmitigated disaster with some of these designers. But he had a body like I did, and so he was able to make me something that actually fit and was wearable, and I still had it. So interestingly, about 3 months ago, I saw him. They had a Project Runway anniversary show or party at Saks or one of these stores. I can't remember. And he was there, and I saw him, and I said the same thing. I was like, I still have that outfit.
Yeah, I for those of us, I think that NFL fans might actually not. The crossover for Project Runway might not be all that strong. If you didn't see it, it's purple striped, and you had some cross hatching pattern.
And it was a
pocket.
pair of slacks that had a little purple, thin purple pinstripes. And the challenge was that my waist was thin and my butt was big, but it was the same thing with him. So he was able to make some pants. He said he used himself as the model.
Are all your clothes personally tailored?
Most of them are. Yeah, it was hard for me to buy stuff off the rack when I was playing because I was 220 pounds, but I'm not tall. I'm not angular. I was just mass. And so I had everything.
I feel like you're a man who knows his way around a squat rack.
Yeah, I do a little bit. I put up some weight on the squat rack in my day.
All right. I'm gonna have to ask. I just got to ask, how much do you squat?
How much have I squatted?
Yeah, let's, in your prime.
In my prime, I was squatting about 680 pounds, which is pointless.
No, that's awesome.
Except it made me realize how to do something that I didn't think I could do. So my trainer was a former New Jersey Strongest Man. So he's a caricature of a guy. He's like 5'8", 300 pounds, and has all these crazy methodologies for teaching fitness. But he would throw stuff on the bar, and he wouldn't make me do 8 reps. He'd say, "You're doing 1 rep, and you're probably going to think you're going to hit the ground, but I'm going to help you, and you can do it." And so I trained myself mentally to think that I could do anything, which actually translated to when I was playing the game on the field. And so he was more valuable as a mental coach than he was as a personal trainer.
Man, that is a lot of weight to squat.
Yeah, it was. It was a stupid amount of weight to squat, but you know what? It made me a good player.
That's awesome. Brendan, what do we got next? What's Tiki's favorite song to karaoke?
I Need $1. I love it.
And if we follow through the link, we go to Thuzio.com.
Yep.
There's an auction where people can bid to have a night of karaoke with you. So
Queef Daddy, whoever that is. Queefing is not something I would think a male would do. So
I don't know about that.
So I'm being cynical for his cynicism. Thinking that I'm doing this because I need money. It's not. It's actually not. I created a platform. I co-founded a platform for athletes to re-engage in their communities, doing all kinds of different experiences, lunches or dinners or going to karaoke or playing ping pong with Jay Williams or having a bowling night with a Giant or a Jet, because we realize that there is, and those not in the the promotional world won't understand what I'm talking about, but there's a long tail of celebrity, right, that stays with you for a long time. And a lot of former athletes don't have anything to do post-retirement. A lot of them do, but a lot of them don't as well. And so we created a marketplace for them to be able to engage in their customer. And the customer loves it because here's someone that you idolize, that you saw on television, that you never thought was attainable to have a personal interaction with. And now we're facilitating it. We have a tagline that this is possible. And we believe that there's a marketplace for this out there. It's evidenced by how many people are on Twitter and Facebook and all these type of social interactions, trying to connect with celebrities around the world.
And this is all available at Thuzio.com.
All available at Thuzio.com.
And if we follow through, it looks like the current bid is $350. We got to go up to $400 for the night of karaoke. What's your go-to?
I'm a Maroon 5 guy.
Maroon 5.
Maroon 5. Yeah,
I
love
wouldn't
Sunday
have expected
morning.
that, and yet I also.
Well, you
would
know
have.
what? I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia, and not in the city of Roanoke, Virginia. I grew up in the county of Roanoke, Virginia. There was 8 black people in my high school, and so I was a rock guy, country guy. And I love Zac Brown Band and Sugarland and all these different typical.
You are so white.
It's unbelievably. You have no idea. I get that often when people's like, "You speak so well." Really? It's probably because I went to the University of Virginia, not because I'm half white.
That's a great school, by the way.
No, it is a great school. I had a great time there.
And football program, not experiencing their best days. But
yeah, well, they beat Miami last week, but other than that, you're absolutely right. They're going through a couple rebuilding years. Mike London is their new head coach, and he's got a lot of recruiting to do. All the good talent in Virginia has been going to Virginia Tech, which is evidenced why they've been so good over the last 8-9 years. But we'll start to get it back. We'll come back. We have a saying down there. That's all right. That's okay. You will work for us one day.
I think that's actually that's a refrain at many schools.
Exactly.
I went to Northwestern. We had the same. We did that cheer a lot.
Exactly.
We also no. Let's close things out with Fumbler. I write a weekly column called Fumbler.
Oh, man.
And so, man, I love our graphics. They're so nice. And this is a preview of tomorrow's column. If we can get that guy back up here, Brendan. This guy and the Dolphins game. Look, he's a beautiful man.
Oh,
and I
that
know
is fantastic.
For those of you who get the audio feed, it's a overweight man, got some love handles, and he has the undefeated and unforgotten 1972 Dolphins tattooed across his love-handled belly. If you look on his right side, he's got a bowling tattoo as well.
That is sweet.
To go with the nipple rings.
He's got a Spider-Man on his right bicep and a vortex swirly type thing on his left one.
He's from Miami, so it's probably a hurricane.
Yeah,
tattoo.
exactly. But you know what the only problem with this picture is? Unforgotten is not a word.
It is now. It's forget the word remembered. It is now unforgotten. Man, that's just the face of God right there.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. Dolphins fans. Keep holding on to 1972.
You know what? He stayed in the stadium though, because if you got the video feed of this, it was 37-3 at that point. I give him credit for staying in the stadium.
Man, I don't know that the Dolphins are a whole nother. Actually, Ryan Tannehill is also going to be joining Thuzio, and you're
Ryan Tannehill's on our platform. So a lot of people assume that it's all retired guys, but it's not. We have a bunch of current guys. Ari Dickey is one. Ryan Tannehill, Paul Salai down in Miami as well, and a few New Yorkers and Nets and Knicks and things like that. So it's everyone, and the people will say it's unattainable because of the price ranges, but we go from $300 to $10,000 for opportunities to engage with these folks, and it's a great way, we think, for customers to find that relationship or have that personal interaction with someone who they've admired or wanted to always have a conversation with. And the beauty of it is that once the platform is developed and built, we're going outside of sports, right? We're having some meetings with Broadway actors and artists and musicians and chefs and really anyone who has fans that people want to interact with. And so we're having fun doing it.
All right, Tiki. Thank you very much. Again, Thuzio.com is where you can go to karaoke with Tiki Barber and many other exciting things. Thanks so much for joining us on our maiden voyage.
I love it.
Of Uffsides.
I love it.
And join us next Tuesday. Also check us out. We're going to have the audio feed of this on iTunes and subscribe to SBNation.com, our YouTube channel, and follow Tiki Barber at Tiki Barber on Twitter and myself, Matt Ufford. Until next week, so long.